Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting edition of How Do I Do This Anyways? Today, what we're going to do is we are going to create a keychain in Inventor. Uh, let's go ahead and get started. You want to double click on this little icon for Inventor Pro 2024, and you want to open it up. It may ask you to log in. When you open this up, use your Autodesk credentials that you set earlier. If you need to, rescue your password, send that on to your email, etc., to get into here. When you get to a screen sort of like this, what we're going to do is we're going to go new and click new. It's going to pop up with a new file thing. You also can get to this by clicking here and saying file new. Either way, we want to use a metric template. It's probably going to pop up with you saying English and want to give you an IPT that's in inches. We want to be in metric, and we want to be a standard millimeter IPT because we need to draft in millimeters for us to 3D print in millimeters correctly. You need to 3D print in millimeters because that's what our slicer software interprets. So we have this blank screen. We want to turn it into, where is it? File. We want to turn it into that, okay? Where I got my first letter of my name and then my last name, what period I'm in, and you're going to set what color it's going to be and all that happy stuff. So what we're going to do, start out with a simple 2D sketch. Just click this little button in this ribbon that's across the top here. Click Start 2D Sketch, and then it's going to ask us where we want to start that sketch. So I'm going to select this XZ plane that's right there. And what you'll see is that it changes to this view. Now I'm looking dead on, like I'm looking down on a sheet of paper on the table. If I come up here to my view cube, I can see that I'm looking down on the top of it, but the top is turned. I want to go ahead and rotate this. Just click this button one time, and that'll turn it so that way you're reading the top of it. That's how you're facing your object like it's sitting on a table. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start a rectangle. Just click that rectangle tool with the left click one single time. And you see how it pops up green when I hover over that? That makes a coincidence constraint with the origin. And so I want to go ahead and I just want to make this thing 60 millimeters, and then I'm going to hit tab one single time by 20 millimeters. And that geometry works pretty well for a decent sized name tag. Now, I've got this little rectangle right there. It's a closed shape. It's got all of these little symbols that you'll learn what those mean later. I'm going to hit Finish Sketch to finish that sketch. And now I'm going to click Extrude because I want to drag that surface on up. Now, Inventor is a pretty smart software. It's looking for a closed shape to extrude. You have to have some sort of a closed shape in order to extrude it. So I'm going to go ahead and now type for my distance. I want to go 5 millimeters. And I'm going to click OK. Now I got this rectangle here, this rectangular prism, and I want to turn this into a shape that's a lot more user-friendly. You know, I don't want these harsh, sharp corners here. I want to have nice rounded corners because when I 3D print this, if you have these sharp edges, that'll actually cut your hand and stuff like that sometimes. So what you want to make sure you don't do is exactly that. To avoid that, we're going to use the fillet tool, and that's going to put a round on the edges. So first thing, I'm going to select that edge, and I'm going to select that edge. And I'm just going to play with the number to see a fillet that I like. 4 millimeters, let's go with 8 millimeters. That seems too big, maybe 6. 6 looks good. All right, so that's that side. I just went ahead and hit enter in order to set that size of fillet. Now I'm going to play with the chamfer tool. I want to chamfer these edges in because I want this to be clipped at like a 45 for the hole to be in the center of that. So I'm going to go ahead and chamfer those two edges. And now I just got to decide how far I want to go. Type in the number 6 to see how that looks. Get that around. Yeah, it looks like it'll be all right. I'm going to go ahead and apply that and then click cancel. If you just click apply, it gives you the opportunity to do more chamfers immediately as opposed to having to reactivate the tool. I'm going to click cancel to get out of that. I don't like those sharp edges on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet those as well. So I'm just going to rotate it around and then hover over the line and click on the lines one time. You need to be very careful. All right. Now, the way that I'm rotating, I'm holding the shift button down and the center wheel mouse or the center button on the mouse in order to rotate around like that. Okay. You can rotate by turning your view cube around. You're going to find something that you like better. Also, if you click the view cube, it's going to give you an orthogonal view of that surface. Okay, so there's many ways to maneuver, and quite frankly, find one you like. I prefer the shift and center wheel mouse. If I just hold the center wheel mouse, I can just drag it left, right, up, and down. This is called panning. Back to reality. I don't like that 6 millimeter fillet, so I'm going to cut it down to 2. Yeah, that gives me those nice straight sides and then just kind of rounds over those corners, which is what I'm looking for here. Groovy. Now, I need another fillet because this top edge and this bottom edge are both sharp. So I'm going to fillet those edges. And if you've done this correctly, you see how I hover over that line and it goes all the way around it? That's because when you apply fillets and chamfers, it creates tangent constraints. And so it creates a single line all the way through that. All right, so that looks like it's too big of a fillet. I've got nothing on those sides. So I'm going to just take it down to like maybe 1 millimeter, 1.5. I like 1.5. Find one you like. Make sure that there's a fillet on there. So now I've got that overall shape of the name tag. Good morning. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to start a 2D sketch on this surface in order to actually put my hole here. So I'm going to start that 2D sketch. I click that button and then I click the surface to lay the sketch on. Now I'm going to grab my point tool because I just want to drop a point where I want the hole to be. Now, what you should notice is that you see how it pops up with a green line or a green dot right there? That's making a coincidence constraint with the midpoint of this thing. Now, if I come over here and then come over horizontally, you see how it has that line? That's saying that it's putting that on the midpoint. I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to eyeball to make sure it's vertically aligned with these two curves. So I want it aligned with that one, which when I do that, it lines up. So somewhere in that ballpark is good. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to leave that point and use that point as my reference geometry to place a hole. I need to put a hole there for my keychain. So we're just gonna, there's many shaped styles of holes depending on what fastener you're using and what you need. We're just gonna do a simple through hole. That's what this little button right there means, through all, direction downwards. And I want that to be, I want it to be 5, but you can play with the numbers. 1 is way too small. 8 is pretty big, okay? I like 5 because that's ish a quarter inch, just slightly under a quarter. So we're going to go with that. Now, if I go ahead and leave it like that, there's going to be that sharp edge on the top and the sharp edge on the bottom, and it's going to catch on your beaded chain, and that's not going to be a good thing. So I'm going to click that fillet button again, and I'm going to click the top one, and I'm going to click the bottom one. And I'm just going to go ahead and let it match that outer fillet. Click OK. All right, so that's going to wear much nicer. It's going to be easier on the chain, and this will last longer. It won't just chip away at that hard corner and wear away in your pocket. Now, we've got to put our text on here. So let's get started on that. First thing we need to do is start a 2D sketch, and we want to click that one time with the left click, and then we want to left click a single. You see how it's popping up with that surface is green, or it might be a different color. It's saying on that surface, and I'm going to click and say yes on that surface. Now, in order for me to drag it around, I'm again holding down that center button on my mouse in order to pan, and I can move it to wherever I feel like. I can wheel in or out to get a better view. And now I'm just going to go ahead and click to have a text box, left click, and I'm just going to drag out a text box across here. Okay. Now I want to type in my name, J_Glazer. period, whatever class you're in. First initial, last name, please. And then click OK. Gosh, that's pretty small. So what we want to do, hit escape a couple of times in order to drop the text toolbar or a text tool. And then you should be able to come back over here and it highlight a different color when you hover over it. When it does that, you're able to select it. You want to double click it. Then what you want to do is we want to just play with the size of the text. Depending on the size of your name and what font you pick, it's going to be different shapes and different sizes in there. And we're going to check to make sure that we're making this thing large enough to 3D print. Okay. So I want to just highlight that and I want 6.1. Let's try that. See how it popped to a second line here? That doesn't necessarily mean it'll pop to a second line in reality. Okay. So I actually like that size. So I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag to drag it on down. Later on, I'll show you how to center that thing properly. But for right now, just clicking and dragging, just eyeball it to make it look nice. Click finish. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and click emboss. What embossing does is it creates either an extrusion to drag your text out if you click that button, or it engraves it inwards. I want to go ahead and engrave it inwards because if you try and raise it out of the surface, your keys and stuff in your pocket are going to wear that off the surface quickly. However, if it's engraved into the face, then it's sunk in there and it's not going to be scraped off. Boom. Okay. So again, what I just did, I clicked emboss. Here, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo what I just undid. Click emboss. Click what you want to emboss. Click that engrave button there. Tell it what depth. I said 0.5 millimeter, do a 0.5 millimeter. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to engrave it if you've done all this stuff correctly. Now, this is how you're going to check to make sure it's actually going to 3D print. Okay, the number of times I get keychains with the text is like really thin and curly and all that, and it doesn't 3D print, I'm going to show you how to avoid that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come to this inspect tab on your ribbon and click on it one time. We're going to click measure. Now what you want to do is you want to come in here and find the narrowest points and click between there. You see how it says 0.7 millimeters? That's a little narrow. I mean, 0.5 and above technically will 3D print, but it's going to be difficult to see at times. So I'm going to click done here, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to my 3D model tab, and I'm going to right click, or I'm going to click the plus sign in my browser and highlight the sketch. I'm going to right click it and say edit sketch. I'm going to double click my text. Now I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to bold it and see how it looks. And you see how it just got larger and it's off the screen now? That's going to kick back errors if I try and say finish the sketch. So double click it. And what we want to do is we want to adjust the size of it so that way it takes up a decent amount of space. 5.5. Looks like it'll work. So now I'm going to click finish sketch, and now it changed. And you see how now it's bolded? All right, so you see how that's bolded now? Yeah, that's exactly how you want it to look. Okay, now we can change the color. We'll do that later, but the only thing that really matters is you tell me what color you want it 3D printed in. So follow the proper format when you're saving. And by proper format, I do mean, let's do that right now. File, save as. Okay. Now it's going to ask you where you want to save this. You want to save this in your flash drive. Do not save these on these computers. Now, if you don't have a project folder, create a new folder. Okay. You're going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call this one As soon as it stops flashing, there we go. Sometimes you have to let it think. We're going to call this thing name tag. Okay. I'm going to hit enter to set the name and set the folder. Double click it to open it. Now, it wants to automatically save it as part one. Don't ever call your parts part one. You want to give it a unique name that describes what it is and tells who drafted it. So, this thing is name tag underscore your initials. Okay. Click save. If you did it right, you should see your flash drive flashing in the front of the thing, of the front of the computer, and the name should change here. Additionally, click the file folder that's down here in the bottom. Click on this browser window right here to open up your flash drive, and you should see the folder that you've created in there, and you should see your file created there. Okay, and you see how it says Autodesk Inventor Part? That's very important. That's an IPT. Okay, there's a difference in files, and let me go ahead and show you why that's important, because I can't 3D print an IPT. However, I can 3D print an STL file, stereolithograph. So we're going to go ahead and click File again and Export. We're going to export that as a CAD format. Okay. Your project folder should be automatically populated in this little window here. If not, you need to navigate through that browser in order to find your project folder to put the STL file in the same file folder. Now, this is where you actually need to tell me what color it is. I have red, I have blue, I have orange, I have green generally. Check out the color codes that I have on there and go ahead and tell me what color you want it. I'm going to go with, I'm feeling race car red. RD, red, name tag, JG. Now I want to save this as an STL file. Okay? Save. You should see your flash drive flashing. Now, I can click here, and you see how it says red name tag JG, and it's an STL file. Now we have the proper format. And what I'm able to do with this format is I'm able to actually go through and populate this into a slicer program in order to 3D print it. This thing, if all goes well, will take 20, 30 minutes and 7 grams of filament at these particular settings. So hopefully you found this video useful. Let me know if you have any questions, but you should be able to follow this click by click. Take care.